Well, great. We've got Holly here, one of our conscious agents here at Reality Sandwich, and she'll be diving deep into one of her ayahuasca experiences and sharing a little bit of the journey and a little bit of the vulnerability here with the community today.
All right, cool. Let's do it. I'm gonna dive right in.
Let's start with a little bit of set and setting. Give us a little bit of backstory on when this experience was, a little bit of where it was happening, and a little bit of where you were at in life as well, just setting the context.
Yeah, absolutely. So this took place in the fall of 2017. So it's been a minute now. At that point in my life, I had had many psychedelic experiences, primarily with psilocybin and LSD, some MDMA, things like that, but never in necessarily like ceremonial settings, right? Certainly some smaller groups and things like that, some party environments and festivals and things like that. And I was comfortable with psychedelics. Like I felt really like, okay, I know my vibe. I know how to handle these, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was at this point in my life where I wanted to go deeper with that experience. And there were a lot of people in my network that had been doing ayahuasca for a while. A lot of my coworkers and a lot of my friends, and it just kept bubbling up, like how these things start. Like you start hearing about them more and more, and then the itch comes, and then the call comes, and then you're going and you're there. So I got more curious and, asked to be connected with these folks that were hosting ceremonies. And they, we did kind of like an intro call and talked about why I would want to sit with this medicine, et cetera, et cetera. Am I a good candidate for this? Things like that. And so I had to get really clear on why I even wanted to do this. And aside from being just kind of like a psychedelic seeker and being curious to unravel mysteries and tap into things we don't see on a daily basis, one of the real reasons I wanted to go is because I'd lost a very, very close friend to me a couple years earlier, and I was still just really deep in the throes of grief. And somehow I just thought that this experience could, I don't know, not heal me from my grief, but maybe reveal something to me that I had yet to consider about life or death, or how to just break out of it and move on. So that's kind of what started the whole situation. Was I wanted to go have this experience to see what it could teach me about myself and see if it could show me anything about how I could get rid of grief. That's really where I started. And so, when I had agreed to do this ceremony, I had a lot of lead time. I knew that this was coming up, I want to say 2 months in advance or something like that. So I had a lot of time to think about it and honestly kind of psych myself out a little bit. There were multiple times where I was like, I don't want to do this. This sounds so scary. I'd been asking people their stories, and for a lot of people, it's so personal and they don't want to tell you much, or they don't know how, right? There's things you experience that you're like, I have no idea how to even explain this to you. And a lot of people that I trusted were just, their best advice was have zero expectations. Just get on in there and you got this. Ayahuasca is like a velvet hammer, she's gonna get you whatever you need. So just show up. Oh yeah, helpful. That's so cool. Thanks. So leading up to this experience, as far as things like preparation goes, other than, staying up late and wondering what the hell I was about to experience, I got pretty serious about the dieta, which I was advised to prepare for this ceremony to cut out things like, I gave up almost all meat. I think I kept some fish in my diet, no fats, no salts, no garlic or ginger or grounding herbs. I was pretty much eating just very clean, steamed vegetables and some fish for at least a week, maybe a little longer, right? I was like, okay, well, if I can do anything right, I'm going to do this right. This will help me be most prepared, I don't want to purge the whole weekend or whatever I thought in my mind. So that was my form of preparation. I definitely Also did some things like stay off of media, a lot of extra journaling, some breathwork practices, which I cannot recommend highly enough in preparation for ayahuasca ceremonies. So those are the things I did to lead up to the experience. And then the weekend of, I was intending to sit 2 nights. It's going to be a Friday and a Saturday. So I took off work on Friday, and I took off all the way through Monday, actually, which fortunately I had a cool job where like half the people there had also sat with these exact same people. So they're like, oh yeah, take time off. We totally get it. So it's really like a cool work situation like that. And so on that Friday, I like pack up my stuff and I head out to this place. So this was in Oregon. I live in Seattle now, but I was living in Oregon at the time. And the folks holding this ceremony are a husband and wife, and they have a very dear friend with a beautiful property in Oregon. So they hold ceremonies in Hawaii where they make their medicine. They hold ceremonies in Europe and in California and in Oregon at the time. So I was traveling not far from where I live. It was about a half an hour drive from my home. And I sobbed hysterically the whole way there. Like I had like this crazy emotional release. I was like just beside myself with anxiety and excitement and, what's this going to be like? And I was really excited, but it's just those like nerves of what's going to happen. So I get there and this place is a beautiful property just in the desert, high Oregon desert. It's just beautiful. And I start to kind of connect with people there. And I realized there were 16 people that sat. 4 of them I knew. I didn't know that I would see these people there. And so that was a little awkward for me at first because they're people from, I don't want to say my social circle, but a little bit. Like I would see them at shows or maybe a birthday party for a mutual friend. So I knew them, but not well. So the fact that I was about to get insanely vulnerable with these people was a little bit intimidating to me at first. But I liked this space and I liked the vibe and I loved the husband and wife duo, the shamans that were serving the medicine, and then their friend who, the host of the land. He was so wonderful and warm and welcoming. And, everybody sat around and we talked about just what was going to happen, right? They like laid the groundwork for how this was going to go and what the space was going to be like and timelines and as much expectation as they could offer, So everybody had, I want to say a couple hours to just like hang out until it was time to do this. They talked with everybody one-on-one, and then they encouraged us to kind of just conversate in groups. There were a lot of people there that had sat many, many times. So a lot of us were just kind of like asking questions or getting a little bit of advice. And that was really cool just to have a moment to connect with these people. And then we went to set up our spaces. So I'm like immediately like in the mode of, okay, what's the best place to be in this room? Like I want to be in the best location possible. Like I need the sweetest spot. So I like find this little area in a corner next to this like beautiful hutch or something like that. And I set up my area. I'm like, okay, cool. I got a wall on one side. I won't be sandwiched by people. Like that's nice. I like that, I have another woman next to me and, people start kind of lining around the room. And then this one like older woman comes in and she sets up her mat like right in front of me. So I can't like go anywhere. She's like, my perch is in the form of, I need to get to the bathroom. So I hope you don't mind. I'm here, sweetie. I'll never forget the look on her face. She was so sweet and so cute. I was like, oh yeah, grandma, you can sit wherever you want. So we're all in our space and getting ready for like the ritual to begin, So the ritual, I think, is fairly common to what I've heard other people share. There's some prayers involved and smudging and smoke and things like that. And then one by one, we're all called up to drink. And we go get our little cup, and receive a blessing, and we come sit back down and everybody gets their cups and we're all getting ready to drink together. So once everybody drinks together, it's just kind of like, all right, buckle in. I knew it was going to be maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes before I started to feel anything. So it's just kind of time to get into that meditative zone, And I'm pretty sensitive to psychedelics. While I generally like taking decent quantities of them, I always feel them really quickly. So I would say within 20 minutes, I started to just get that body high feeling. Like I knew, okay, the medicine is working. Like this is totally happening. Here we go. And the high came on slow and smooth at first. I know a lot of people say that they don't have any visuals at all, or they maybe just have closed eye visuals. And some people are just kind of like full blown tripping. I had all of those in a cadence. So the room immediately turned into fractals. It's a super high ceiling, open space with like a loft up above, but everybody's just in this, like horseshoe shape with our leaders in the front near a fireplace. And I'm in full blown fractals. Like if I would have tried to get up and walk out of there, I feel like I would have been like playing Tetris with my body or something. Like it would have been crazy. And then when I closed my eyes, I started to see really light movies a little bit, like nothing full blown in front of me yet, but light movies. And then I kind of sat in that for a while. I was like lying on my back, and the woman comes over to me, our woman hostess, and she said, "Would you like some more medicine?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, okay, that sounds good." So she like helps me up to the front. And
how long or how far into the experience was that? Could you best guess?
I bet it was an hour. I want to say it was maybe an hour in. I drank at least 3 times that night, if not 4. Things start to get a little crazy later on, but it was probably an hour in. And I want to say it was about the same amount. And she was offering this, I would notice she was offering this to people at different times. And I felt like she was in our experience and knew when we needed it and when we didn't. And like, because I know not everybody was offered more. You know what I mean? Like, which that really tripped me out how like, first of all, kudos for being able to also drink this medicine, play music, host this space, and tap into everybody else, but like that blew my mind. But yeah, so I take this second drink and like at this time, now music is really starting to play. One thing this woman is so revered for is her musical gifts. Her and her husband both are extremely talented musicians, but everybody talks about how she kind of enters a different dimension when she starts singing, when she's under the influence of the medicine. And she talks about it too. She's like, I don't know what happens. Those are the sounds that come out of me when I'm with the medicine in ceremony. I don't sound like that when I'm normally singing outside. Like, I know, and I don't know how to explain it. I couldn't, there's no way I could even emulate it. It's just otherworldly and almost like kind of makes you want to purge. Like it makes you feel like you're starting to go really inside the medicine. It's like, holy shit, slow it down. Like, here we go. It was so cool. So beautiful. So then things like picked up quick for me. I started having some really intense visions, lying down on my back on my mat with my eyes closed. And I started getting really emotional. I was uncomfortable for a little while because other people now around me were starting to purge quite a lot, and I didn't. So I was really distracted by that. And then I got really concerned about another girl that was next to me who was having a very hard time. And it took me a while to kind of remember that, like, I can send her love, but I can't do anything else for her. So it took me a while to remember that, like, no, you have to come back to your own space. Like, she's being helped in the ways that she needs to be helped. And I have to dissociate from that a little bit, which was hard for me because I feel like when I'm in groups, like tripping with friends, I'm like, trip mom. I'm like, hey, is everybody hydrated? Need a snack? Anybody need a hoodie? It's a little cold. I'm like, always really want to make sure everybody's so comfortable. So it took me a minute to dissociate, but then once I finally settled into my space and let the medicine just take me, things got absolutely nuts. I had this vision of like this coming out of this blackness. It's like everything is black, my eyes are closed, and then all of a sudden, just so far away, this little thing starts coming into focus. I'm like trying to see it. And it's this small little mechanical object. And it gets closer and closer and closer and closer. And it's a heart, like a mechanical heart, tiny little screws, itty bitty little components. And it begins to open up. This heart opens up and it's so alive. Like these tiny little angels fly out and there's little fairies and rainbows and clouds and like literally fantastical, insane, bright, vibrant things that are like glossy and all these gorgeous colors. And it's this whole scene. And there are these hands like puppeteering this whole show. It's gorgeous. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've never tripped like this before in my life. This is so cool. Like I'm watching a movie. It's amazing. And then I recognized the hands. They belonged to my friend that had passed away that I was grieving. And as soon as I saw his hands, I lost it. Like I'm now having a very physical reaction. I'm sobbing hysterically. Like I can't breathe, you know? But meanwhile, I'm still like seeing this. This is still happening. So this goes on for only a few minutes, probably. I mean, I don't know what is time, but maybe a few more minutes. And I just open my eyes and the woman is standing over me and she looks like a crow or a raven, like some type of large human-sized black bird is standing over top of me. And she has a massive feather wand and she starts tapping it on my chest and blowing smoke out of her beak onto my body is what I am seeing this as. And she's singing to me and she's tapping my chest and smudging me. And she's like, it's okay. Like, just, you're okay. You know, reassuring me I'm going to be all right. And I close my eyes again and my friend comes and he closes the heart up and he takes it away and the vision is completely gone. I think I maybe recovered from that part of the trip within a few minutes. Like there might have been like a downtime there where I was like processing that. And then shit really started snowballing. And I was now having full-blown hallucinations. I had completely lost track of the fact of where I was, that I was in a room in public and I was on a whole different plane. It wasn't like sometimes when you dream or lucid dream, you recognize that it's your body, it's your vision coming out of your body, and you're doing this other thing. But you have the knowledge somewhere that it's gonna stop eventually. I didn't have that. This was different. My life here on Earth as I knew it was gone. I had somehow crossed into a new plane of existence, and this is where I live. And this place sucked. This place sucked because in it, I was all the worst things I could ever think about myself, and everybody else knew it. So, you know, we're always our own worst critics. That's totally true. But I didn't realize until I got here to this place I was in just how awful I really was to myself. Like the terrible things I said to myself all the time, every day, how everything I could do could be better, just all of it. My relationships, my work performance, how I take care of myself, how I interact with my community, my family, all of it. And this all became super aware to me, and I started to watch it play out in interactions in this life. It was like almost like I was being shown, okay, this is what you think of yourself. Let's show you what that world's actually like. Now everybody thinks this. This is what life would look like if that were true. And I started seeing all these scenes of how my perfectionism and extreme self-criticism was ruining my life and limiting my ability to enjoy the human experience. I had no idea that this piece of me existed, I guess. I mean, I did, I do have a little bit of a perfectionist complex. I do really like to perform, and I've worked really hard in my life to realize that I'm more than just what I can produce. But this was like the hellscape version of me learning that on the fly. And this went on for hours. There were just all kinds of like dirty, filthy places I was, or scenes I was having, or just like weird little things that I was trying to resist. And now what I didn't know, because like I said, I was not at all any more aware that I was in this room. I was fucking gone. So every now and again, this wonderful man, Barry, who was helping everybody, his property, he would come over and kind of tap me and be like, like, you're talking really loud. Like, I was vocalizing this stuff. Apparently, I was talking to other people in the room, the people that I knew. And I didn't know this. I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry. My bad. Let me be quiet. And I'd go back down to my mat. And then it was like, I'm, then I'd spiral out on that. Like, I'm ruining it. I can't even do this right. I can't even do ayahuasca right. I'm fucking blowing it. And he kept coming over a few more times. Okay, Holly, like, for real, like, I need you to remember that, you got to have your own experience. Okay. This is your own experience. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. So eventually I had spoken out a few too many times, and he removed me from the room. I was now like sitting up, talking loudly, and disrupting this entire experience. I had completely lost control of where I physically was. I am being totally disruptive, and I am being removed. So he takes me outside, and I have very fuzzy memories from what happened next, because I was in a total panic. Part of me is trying to get back into the trip so that I can fix whatever's wrong with me. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I have to go in there and find the root of this disease and why I hate myself so much, or why I think I have such little self-worth, or what is this? I have to go fix that right now. This is my only chance. And then part of me is scared of the medicine, and scared of the help that this person is trying to offer me, and scared that I'm never going to be sober again. Like, I'm having that thing, like, oh God, I'm screwed. Like, I'm never going to be sober again. Like, great. What do I do? And, I remember Barry just being like, I'm literally here to help you. I have helped hundreds of people have these challenges. You need to trust me, though. You can't go wandering off the property. I need you to come sit down. Like, you can't I kept telling him, I needed to go get a flashlight. There's a flashlight in my car. I should go get it. He's like, we're not doing that. Like, you don't need it. Let's come, like, I was just on these missions to fix and solve these things that I thought I needed, or whatever. So this went on the entirety of this night. It was awful. The visions I was having were really gross and disgusting. And then they'd alternate with really normal things that showed me super practical examples. Like, there was one where all my friends, like, it was almost like we were at the ceremony, but all my friends were there, and everybody decided, okay, we're done with the medicine. Let's go outside and play. Let's go by the campfire and turn on music and go play. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to do that. Do I have the right shoes? Do I have the right coat? I need my flashlight from my car. Do I have enough water? Am I hydrated? All these things were rolling through my head. Like, if I didn't do everything right or have the perfect situation, I didn't deserve to have fun. And that was the huge wake-up call to me that that's how I was living my entire life. If I couldn't do it all right, if I couldn't nail everything perfectly, why did I deserve to experience any of the joy that life had to offer? So the next morning I wake up and I'm on a couch outside of the ceremony room in this hallway, covered up with like 800 blankets. I'm like in this pile of blankets, and I feel terrible. I'm having that like horrible, like hangover anxiety feeling of like, oh my God, I can't believe I lost control like that. I can't believe I so totally lost control. And I'm humiliated. I'm completely humiliated. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. And I don't want to see anybody. I want to get the fuck out of there. I want to drive away, and I want to never see any of these people ever again. So I sit in those feelings for a little while and realize that's insane. And obviously this happened for a reason. And maybe you needed for once to be completely out of control. You needed to be this insane version of yourself. And so let's figure out what it's all about. So I get up and I go out to the group, and everybody's like eating and hanging out and playing music. And I'm just like, hi, don't look at me. And there are some people that seem like annoyed by my presence. And then there are some people that just come and like give me a big hug and ask if I'm okay. And then our female host came and grabbed me. She's like, let's go take a walk. So we take a walk, and I was like, is that normal? You know, like, has anybody ever done that before? And she's like, oh yeah, my very first ceremony, I had to be completely restrained by two men twice my size holding me down because I was so out of control, having this insane ego death existential crisis. Like, trust me, you're not the only person that's totally lost their mind on ayahuasca, or, you know, it's okay. I was like, I just feel like I need to apologize. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed. And she's like, well, walk me through what happened, you know? And I tried to tell her a little bit. And she's like, well, you know, let's talk about some of the roots of this and why you have, you know, everything you're telling me comes back to this, like, you feel like you just like don't deserve to take up space in the world. And, you know, you're rushing through the checkout line so you don't inconvenience the person behind you, kind of a style, you know, like what, like, why do you feel that way, you know? And we talked about it for a long time. And you know, it kind of came back to a lot of stuff. Maybe my super religious upbringing and never be, you know, you're never good enough for God where I came from. You know, I think a lot of people have some of that in them. When you've had deep religious experiences or gone to kind of crazy Christian schools like I did, I think that's a little bit common. But, you know, she was like, look, if you want to apologize, go apologize. It's not going to change. Who gives a shit what any of these people think of you? Like, you didn't come here to give them a good experience. Like that, you didn't come here so that they could have a good time. That's insane. Apologize if you want. If you don't want to sit tonight, don't sit tonight. We're not going to make you. We think you should. But if you want to leave, leave. Okay. So I spent the rest of the day like walking in the desert. I didn't eat anything. I didn't talk to anybody. I just like took off into the desert and, you know, consulted the sagebrush on life. Like, what? Okay. So then I got over myself and decided I got to sit. I have to sit tonight. Like, I'm in this. I don't want, like, everybody talks about ayahuasca as this like beautiful, loving experience, and they walk away just like so high from it. And I'm like shaking and feeling sick to death and hating myself. I don't want that to be my experience. So before we drink again the second night, I go sit with everyone. And we all have a chance to talk about what happened to us the night before and what we're expecting for tonight. And everybody had really thoughtful things to say. And so many people were like, we were sending you love. Like, oh, we're sending you so much love. You know, we knew you were really struggling. And a lot of people shared that they had insane experiences once before too, or whatever, you know, trying to make me feel better. And it did. And I did apologize. Because I just felt like I had to. I don't know why. So I decided to drink again, but I only drank twice that night. I didn't drink the third time. Now, let me go back to this night before. I don't remember drinking the third time. They told me I did. They were like, yeah, you came up for more medicine, but we don't think you should have more than 2 tonight. I was like, yeah, me either. I was like, I'm good. So second night, that's what I did. I drank twice. This time I had the type of experience that I also think is common. You hear a lot of people say that ayahuasca gives you exactly what you need. And a lot of versions of that are she's going to absolutely buckle you at the knees and punch you in the gut and show you yourself. And you may or may not like what you see or feel or hear. And then she's going to pick you up and just give you the warmest, most loving, safe embrace. And that's exactly what happened the second night. I did not have a super psychedelic trip the second night. I had more like, it was literally like being in like a healing cocoon. Like they played music again the second night, but in my head, what I heard and felt was that I was like deep sea listening to whale sounds. Like I was on like whale sound radio or something. Like I was just being held in the ocean and there were whales everywhere around me. And they were like my family and they were protecting me and like singing me to sleep. And it was perfect. I had all these people kept popping up. Like I had that like blank screen again and then like a face would just pop out and it was someone I knew and they had like a message for me. It's like my husband would come in. He's like, we're going to do great things together. Buck up. You know, I'm like, oh, cool. My boss showed up. He's like, everything's going to be fine. I've got an answer to XYZ, this like problem we were solving. It was so funny. But all these people just like kept reassuring me that like, hey, it's all good. Like we're all doing good. You're good. We're all good together. You don't need to worry about anything. So the next day I did have what a lot of people, you know, I had that euphoria. I was so high because I felt like I had for sure died. At the time, I don't think that I knew the term ego death or had any understanding of what that would have meant. Nor do I think I would have said that what I would have, at the time, I would be like, wow, I had a bad trip. But what I didn't realize is that was my version of an ego death, being shown all of the terrible things that I feel about myself, and then being shown what my reality could look like if that were actually true, so that I could come back and immediately start working day to day on how to stop living in that mental space because it was fucking killing my confidence, my self-esteem, and my ability to relate to other humans. So, yeah, there's a second step of this experience that happened a few months later. So after this ceremony, I like typical stuff. Like I felt really fucking high, like in such a good, just like euphoric endorphin kind of a way. And the folks that held this ceremony offer like integration calls over the next week, you know, like let's talk, like ask questions, like how can we continue to support you? And I did find that to be pretty helpful. But I was still just like I had gone in wanting to find answers about grief. And what happened was I went in and I got a hug from my friend that died. And that felt so good. And that did change how I felt about grief. It didn't change the fact that it's been almost a decade since he died. And I'm still, you know, get choked up when I think of him sometimes, or, you know, all of the things. But I learned how to transmute that grief in a better way. And that having that message from him and that deep heart healing was really a vital part of that for me. And then this illumination of this negative self-talk and this like terrible mental space I was in, and how I was putting my worth on my productivity and all of these things. Really what that did was just show me how much work I had to do. I didn't even know I was doing it. I had no idea that I'd been living my whole life like this. I guess I just thought everybody constantly talks to their self in their head with like cracking a whip of like, do better all the time. I didn't know that that's like pretty mean and terrible and harmful. I guess I just thought that that was like a part of my personal work ethic or something. I don't know what I thought, but I didn't quite yet set out to go fix it. So fast forward several months later, I'm in Mexico with very close friends. We're staying at this beautiful beach house and we're dropping some LSD. Spending the day on the beach, having just playing some music, hanging out on the deck, just like a nice vacation with like 6 or 7 people that I'm very close with, including my husband. So we all take some LSD, which I'd taken this exact type before. It was some paper that we'd had. It wasn't anything new to me. It wasn't a dose I was uncomfortable with. It was nothing like that. But everybody had a really weird time. Like a really weird time individually. I don't know what the vibe was, like full moon in Mexico. I have no idea, but it was like just a really bizarre trip. Everybody was acting out of character for themselves and strange conversations over breakfast the next day. But at one point, my husband wasn't feeling well. And he's like, I gotta go lie down. I just really don't feel well. And being like, trip mom, I'm worried. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I gotta go be with him. Like he probably just wanted to like chill out. But I was like, no, I'll be right there. I'm on my way. So he's in our room and I go in there and I'm definitely not going to be able to go to sleep. I'm very, very high. I'm like peaking. And I think he took a little less than me. And so he's just lying down, chilling. And I'm standing up and I open the doors out to the balcony and I'm like looking at the ocean. And something happens to me that's happened to me 2 times. This is the second time this has happened, but I hear this crackling in my ears and then it like pops. It's like crinkling wrapping paper or something, and then it just pops. And I start having really deep hallucinations. It's the second time this has happened, so I recognize the sound. But the first time it happened, it was more like, wow, I just want to like touch the wall and look at my hands and watch my fingernails grow. This time, exactly what happened the first night of my ceremony happened, and I was transported back to that place. I was completely out of the room I was in. According to my husband later, I just sat down on the floor. But I was completely transported. I'm back to that place. I'm having the same feeling again. So now I'm super freaked out because I'm like, oh my God, this place is real. And you can get stuck in it. Now, how am I going to get out? Like, this is the second time. Am I an idiot? How did I get back here? Like, I hate it here. I hate this place. It's dark and it's scary. It's different. But this time I'm having these different realizations and I'm like, oh, okay. Like this place is kind of cool. Like I don't need to have a job. I don't have to have anywhere to live. Like it's like this weird like life between lives thing where it was almost like I wasn't even a person or a body or there was no responsibilities. I was like, oh, I'm just like this little soul bouncing around. I don't have to do anything. Okay, so like what do we do here? Maybe it doesn't have to be so scary. And then I see this room. It's like a control panel. And I've seen this control panel before during a past life regression. And this was a place I went to between lives where I went and selected my next life, who I was going to be, who I was going to interact with, what I'd look like, all of these things. So I see the control panel, but I'm not over there. I'm just watching now. And there are all these souls there, these people that I recognize. My mom, my brother, my husband, my boss, my friends. And they're all looking at this book. And there's like this guy there, tall guy in like a robe. And he's kind of like showing, I can't see his face, but he's like showing all my friends and family this book. And he's like explaining me to them who I am, what I'm going to be like, and saying, well, you know, she's going to need a mother. And my mom, this sweet, wonderful, big-hearted woman's like, oh, I'd be willing to do it. I'd be willing to be her mother. Like, I can handle the task, you know? So she signs up. Oh, thank you. Everyone's like, oh, what a saint. She's such a saint that she's willing to be this person's mother. What a task. And one by one, they all do this, you know? My husband steps up. He's like, well, I'll marry her. I'll teach her about love. Like, I can do it. And I'll be her rock. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. You'll keep her tethered to earth. She's going to need you. And this goes on one by one. My boss, someone's going to have to give her a job and teach her. My best friend, oh, I'll meet her when we're 17 and I'll stand by her for the rest of our life. Like all these people are like volunteering. But I'm taking it as I'm like a charity case. Like nobody wants to be in my soul group. Everybody's like, oh God, who's gonna be the one for her? So now I'm totally insecure again, thinking like, oh my God, like why am I'm like ruining this for everyone? I'm making people like waste their lives on me. And I'm back in that terrible insecure self-worth place where I just I'm not seeing it right. But then I'm remembering that like, okay, well, maybe I'm actually in control of this. Maybe I'm calling these beautiful, wonderful people into my life. I want to be with them. They want to be with me. We're teaching each other things on this soul journey. So maybe I'm actually in control. Maybe it's not pity. Maybe I'm writing my story and this is me planning it right now. And I have this crazy thought that if I'm in control of my life and I've shaped everything, that my friend didn't die. He didn't have to die. Why would he die if I was in control of the story? Maybe I wrote that chapter because I needed him to die, because I needed the grief, because I needed whatever, the thought spirals are going, but all I can think is he's not dead. I can call him right now. So in the real world, my husband says, this is when I shot up off the ground. I hadn't been talking. I hadn't been doing anything. And I shoot up off the floor and I say, I'm calling him. I'm calling Josh right now. And he's like, what? You can't call Josh. He doesn't have a phone where he is. I was like, I'm calling him. He's not dead. And so now it's like I'm like trying to wrestle my husband for my phone. I'm going to call him. I'm calling Josh. And he's like, hey, like back down to reality. He's dead. We cremated him. Is that, you've seen his ash? Like he's not here anymore. And I guess it was another one of those like non-human sounds, as my husband says. He's like, this like guttural scream came out of you. He's like, that I've just never heard before. And I just collapsed and started like crying. It was almost like that was like the actual real release of the grief that I had been waiting for, was like that part, the physical thing that I had to just like puke up and get rid of. And
Did you puke?
I didn't puke. I did not puke. I was again. I never puked during my ceremony either. I wanted to a couple times, but I didn't puke. But I just again had felt so sick about it. But I also needed to get that emotion out of my body. And then the space, the terrible space that I was in, slowly just kind of started to fade like a dream. Like I was sitting there trying to process it. Like, oh, but. What was that? Like, was I watching my life between lives? Was I watching, I was just trying to like make sense of what that was. And the people were still coming in and like giving me these little messages. Like it was weird. Like I keep going back to like my boss at the time. Like he's just this like big burly Canadian guy. And he came in and he's like, I just have a piece of advice for you. Listen more than you talk. He kept saying that, listen more than you talk. I was like, oh shit. Okay. And people just, kept like raising their hands to volunteer for me. And I was slowly shifting my perspective on it. It wasn't pity, it was love. And we were doing it together and we were creating this life together. And I was doing it for them too. I was being a piece to their puzzle just as much as they were mine, because we all have this like equal space to share. That was insane. That night was like absolutely nuts. I had no idea that anything like that would have possibly even could have happened. And it actually scared the shit out of me. I didn't take any kind of measurable amount of the psychedelic for probably a year and a half or 2 years after that. I was like, no thanks. That sounds horrible. I don't want to do that again. But it set me out on I got really serious about my mental health, and I got really serious about my spiritual health, and I really cleaned up my life, and I got out of the toxic job that was stressing me out not long after, and I totally changed the way that I, I just shifted a lot of things and started doing some seriously deep inner work because I knew that I couldn't continue living like that. Even though I didn't know I was like, oh my God, I have to get to the other side of this like weird, this falsehood of idea that I'm not worthy or that that I don't deserve to be a part of this awesome life I live. Like, of course I do. I created it. Why would I not deserve to have it? And that set me out on a massive journey, and one that I am very much still on, trying to every day prove that I'm not measured by my productivity. I'm so much more than that. Like, I am an intelligent person. I am a good friend. I am a good partner. But it's been a journey. I guess it's going to take a while to probably undo that lifelong thought loop that I was living in. Yeah.
Maybe some closing thoughts or closing remarks. Like, what are a few of the ways that you're practically integrating the experience? And again, like, it's part of that idea that the integration happens long after, it's kind of a continuous thing. But yeah, just what are maybe a handful of the ways that keep you on that path?
Timeouts. Like, for me, a timeout means breaks from the digital world, like shut down, turn off. And that usually means connecting with nature. I have like forced nature walks because I have to earth and I have to ground and I have to take deep breaths in forests or on beaches. So things like the movement and the nature component is super huge. Being disconnected from technology while doing it is super huge. I started journaling a lot more. I am a writer and I love to write. And sometimes when you write for a living, it's hard to write for yourself. So I've had to really carve out dedicated time that I write for myself, whether I'm journaling or working on like my private writing projects. I have to do that so that I can continue to tell my story and use my voice and remember that the things I have to say are important and that somebody does want to hear them. And I know they need to get out in the world. Body work, like whether that means like if I'm feeling really sticky, like if I need to get a massage or like go do cold plunges or deep like somatic stretching and like intense yoga or whatever I need to do to like physically move the energy out of my body, that's super important. Those are like big buckets, but it's just like, honestly, I look for opportunities to stay on track with that stuff wherever I can with tiny rituals, like I don't look at my cell phone the second I wake up in the morning. I don't sleep with it in my room anymore. I get up, I make a glass of lemon water with my trace minerals, and I stand in the kitchen and I just drink it. Like, I just drink my water, like it's such a tiny little thing, but it's this thing that I do every day that signals like anything else that's happening is not as important as me starting my day getting this water in my body. That's important for me. I really customize my schedule to make it work. Like, I'm fortunate to have an awesome work life where I can do that. Like, I don't have to stress about stuff like, oh, I can't take my dog to the vet because I have to work right now. I really prioritize having some time freedom so that I can take care of my family and my life. That really helps my mental health and helps me also see that there are lots of ways that I contribute and that it's not, like there are just lots of little ways I like to show the people in my life that I love them and care about them, and then also like let them show me. And so finding time to carve that out. My husband loves going to the movies. He just loves it. Like, he'll just be like, it's Tuesday at 1. He's like, I'm going to the movies. I just want to go to the movies. Do you want to go?
Just that butter popcorn smell.
That's literally what it is. He really doesn't care what he's even seen. I'm like, what'd you see? He's like, I don't know. I got a large popcorn. I'm like, yeah, exactly. But, saying yes more to things like that I know it's like such a simple thing, but like, he just wants to spend time with me and take me to a movie. So I'm just going to say yes to that more. I think that the integration is continually finding ways to become a better version of yourself without pressure or expectation. For me, I have to remove the pressure and expectation because that's the thumb I was ruling myself with for so long. I was just needed to step out a little bit of that intense workaholic lifestyle to remind myself that there are other things to experience and that I'm, I don't have to prove myself to anyone or anything, and I can just do the things that I love and I deserve to feel that joy. So really it's about joy. Like I try to find something that just brings me joy every day. And sometimes that's just like, you know what, I'm just going to roll around on the floor today with a pile of tissue paper and my cats and just watch them play because that just makes me laugh and I think it's funny. And I'm going to take 20 minutes to do that right now. Or yeah, I'm going to drive across town and it's going to take a long time to get there, but I'm going to this Vietnamese coffee shop because they have an insane peanut butter latte and it's going to make me so happy to just sit there and sip it. I don't even care that the commute is 35 minutes. I want it and it's going to make me happy. So I'm trying to like embrace little things like that more as a reminder that, it's okay to just like feel good and be happy. And also not rush so much. I think a lot of the like thinking that the woman who said like, you're like rushing in the checkout line because there's someone behind you. Why? It's your turn. You're not being rude. So I've been like thinking a lot about little things like that. Like it's okay to just take up space in places or sometimes that even just means like speaking my voice, like saying something that I'm like, oh, is it okay for me to even be saying that? So yeah, all that stuff. It's like just a work in progress. All day, every day is an opportunity to find a new little way to just break out of that thought process. Or even if I like catch myself having some of those thoughts, I will like stop and physically just like force it out of my head and like reinforce it with the opposite of that statement. Like, okay, that's completely not true. Here's the flip side, because that's what the truth is.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite integration practices is the idea of just begin again. It's like something that got brought up during some guided meditations, and it was that idea that everyone gets frustrated or disappointed when they realize that they're lost in thought. They feel like they've failed the meditation. And the whole idea is that's fine. Just right now, begin again. Like start over right now. And it's just that constant reminder that every moment that you're in now, in the now or now, is a chance or an opportunity to begin again. Whatever you did yesterday, whatever you did last year, you could have been the perfect wife, perfect husband, the perfect human. You have another opportunity right now to do that again, or to be a piece of crap, Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you were the most perfect person or the worst person. What really matters is what's happening right now, what you're doing or what you're thinking or how you're behaving. And at least that's been liberating for me in my integrations is, that idea that, you're always working to get better, but you've always got that opportunity now to practice, to do it over again, and to choose one way or the other. And if you've been the last week, it's been a tough week and you feel like, man, I fell backwards. You've got the chance right now, like life and the world is going to give you another opportunity to try again. So don't worry.
It's going to keep going. The time keeps on ticking. So yeah, start fresh. And also to just stop getting hung up on, I think a lot of us have a habit of like getting hung up on those little past moments, past micro moments, even if it was just yesterday or last week or whatever. And it's like, okay, the chances that anybody even really remembers that or was as remotely as affected as you think they are is like, it's not. Like, it's really not. Like, so yeah, learning to let go of things a little bit easier too, and finding ways to release control and expectations has been yeah, it's a continual work in progress. But yeah, like you said, every moment is an opportunity to just flip the page.
Well, this is incredible. I am honored and grateful to hear your experience. I know we talk about a lot of these things quite often, but to just sit back and get the chronological order of events here is beautiful. So I appreciate your soul and your sharing here on the platform.